Hello everybody, and this is a little quick impromptu Facebook Live because I haven't been live on Facebook, I would say for probably about a month or so. I've been pretty bad. So I'm doing a quick impromptu Facebook Live today just with 5-minute tips for you. I used to do these quite often, so today's a little one about the best low-carb flours and actually how to use them, because I know a lot of you have had baking failures or you've made baking mistakes, and I want to stop doing that, I want to help teach you. So I've just come off a big Facebook Live and ditched the Carbs Pro for about an hour on the top 10 baking ingredients. I'm going to do one baking ingredient with you. So let me know below, have you ever had a baking failure? And if so, what went wrong? And maybe I can help you. So I'm going to go through today I've got them all here, the top 3 flours and how to use them. And I'm sure you'll be making the same mistakes that most people do. Excuse me, the sun is coming right through my kitchen window, so I can barely see the screen. So let me know where you're watching today. In fact, I'll move my chair back a little bit. Let me know where you're watching from today and which country you're in, what time it is, and let me know if you've got any baking issues or any baking mistakes. Let me know. I love to solve baking mistakes. So the first one I'm going to talk to you about is almond flour and almond meal. So that's what almond flour and almond meal looks like. It's ground up almonds. Now these ones have had the skins removed. That's why it looks clean and white. Other times it can have almond flecks, and there you can see the little brown flecks, and that's more like almond meal or ground almonds. They've actually kept the skins in there. I find it very difficult to find almond flour here in New Zealand. So most of my baking is through almond meal, and it's cheaper and it's much easier to find. And also, if you can't find any, you can actually make your own. It won't be as fine, but you can make your own. So almond meal and almond flour are pretty much interchangeable. You might just need to add a little extra tablespoon, depending on your conditions. If it's humid, then this will absorb some liquid or some air from the dampness from the atmosphere. So you might need to add an extra tablespoon. If it's a little bit dry and it's maybe dry atmosphere, you might need to add maybe a little extra egg or something. So that's what I love using almond meal. And if you want some recipes for that, let me know below and I can give you some ideas and some tips as to what recipes are the best for almond meal. Probably my almond flour bread is yummy, or my chocolate fudge cake, or I've got pancakes that you do in the sheet pans. You don't even need to fry them, you just throw them in the oven. Let me know below. So like I say, let me know who's watching and where you're watching from. What country you're watching from today. I do love to see. Oh, there we go. Lynn, yes, I sure have. New Zealand baking goes crumbly. Yeah, it does. So I've probably got a tip for you when I get onto the third flour that I'm going to talk about. So that's the first one. And that is the one that I would say, if you're brand new to low-carb baking, or you're brand new to, if you want to do gluten-free baking, and remember, I don't use gluten-free flours. They are rubbish. They are ultra-processed. They are high in starch. And they're rice flour, they're potato starch, and it's starch. So I don't use those at all. I just use natural grain-free cooking, and it makes it far more nutrient dense and less processed and lower in carbs. So that's the one that tastes more like a traditional cake or a bread would taste. My second one, and I'll come into you, Lynn, when I do the third question, is coconut flour. Now, if you've never used coconut flour, if you can see there, it's the coconut, flesh of the coconut that has been defatted and dehydrated. And the reason I love coconut flour is that it's much cheaper. Where you might use a cup of almond meal, you might only use a quarter of a cup or a third of a cup of coconut flour. It's cheaper, it's higher in fibre, and you add far more eggs to the recipe with coconut flour than for almond flour. So it makes it higher in protein. So I love coconut, and if you look at all my recipes, the majority that are keto are made with coconut flour, not almond flour. Also, and I mean, I've got a whole article on this, I could be on this for hours about the difference between coconut flour and almond flour. But the difference also is between the omega-3 and 6 ratio between the two. That if you have too much almonds, the omega-3 6 ratio is not the best. And so if you're having a big cake, which could be the equivalent of, say, 20 almonds, that's the equivalent of having a large snack of almonds, and it soon adds up. Whereas the omega ratio on coconut flour is way better. And like I say, lower carb, higher protein, much cheaper, and it's more adaptable. Saying that though, that is probably the most easily accepted if you're an absolute beginner, because it tends to turn out more like a traditional cake. So they're the two ones I have there. With the coconut flour, you cannot substitute like for like. So if a recipe would say it takes 2 cups of almond flour, the recipe, if I developed it, I would begin by maybe thinking, okay, with 2 cups, I might start with maybe half a cup of coconut flour and an additional 4 eggs. I then might think, okay, that's a bit too wet, I'll add some more coconut flour. No, that's a bit too dry, I'll add another egg. And so it actually takes a lot of playing around. You can't just swap like for like, because where you use coconut flour, you have to add more moisture because it's the defatted and dehydrated coconut meat. It will absorb, and that's what makes it absolutely brilliant. So let me see what other questions we've got. Oh, hi, Mandy. How are you, my darling? How's your beautiful, beautiful babies? Give them a big smooch from me. My fail, coconut flour straight swap. Okay, that's you are wrong. It was like eating sand, and it will be, because it is like eating sand. It's like the driest flour you can ever imagine, but it's brilliant. A tip, though, if you're struggling with things being very dense like cakes, whip your egg whites and fold through your mix. The cake will be lighter than if you don't. 10 years of experience as a cake baker. Oh, that's brilliant. Yes. Yes, I sometimes whip my egg whites. Sometimes I don't. I'm a bit lazy and I throw them in. Oh, and Amy, you're watching from Australia. Love to see you all here. So these are my top 3 low-carb flours and how to use them, and probably the mistakes that you may have made at the beginning. Like Mandy said, brilliant. Coconut flour, you do not... Oh, the other tip about coconut flour, I will go off on a tangent here. I've got an entire box here that I went through Ditch the Carbs Pro members, and we've just been going through my baking ingredients. Don't think that you can swap shredded coconut for coconut flour. They're completely, completely different ingredients. And so if ever I get comments on my website and they say, oh, my cookie didn't work or my cake didn't work, and I question them a little bit further, they ran out of coconut flour and they used desiccated coconut, and they're completely, completely different. It's like saying you ran out of almond meal and you added whole almonds. It doesn't work. So that's why you have to keep the two. Now, my third and final low-carb flour, which hopefully will answer your question. Where was it? Up here. I think it was from Lynn. You said that your baking goes crumbly. Is psyllium husk. Now, there's psyllium husk. You can see there's psyllium husk there. It's got all the little flecks. It's got the outer of the seed. It's got everything there. And then that's psyllium husk powder. And you can see that isn't. It's really fine. It's almost like dust-like. Almost looks like, without being horrible, looks like what comes out in your vacuum cleaner. It's very, very dust-like. So that's why I like to use psyllium husk. That's one I generally use. It's ground psyllium husk, not the powder. That's very fine. What psyllium husk does is that it adds fibre and texture, and it holds everything together in your cake. So say, for example, if your cake is falling apart and you haven't got that proper crumb, and that's what we're replacing when we're removing wheat from our flour baking, and we have to remove the ability that gluten gives it the crumb and the elasticity. That's what psyllium husk will do, because that swells and it absorbs and it holds a better crumb. So for example, there's a cake, I think it's my carrot cake, and people often ask, oh, do I need that 5 tablespoons or whatever it is of psyllium husk? And I go, yes, you do, because that will gel and absorb and hold the cake together, like sort of like a like the ability that gelatin would have done. And so that holds it together. So if you don't use it, you will get a crumbly cake. So say, for example, if you use the almond flour, it's very difficult to see because the sun's coming in. Nothing will hold that together. It's just little pieces of almonds all ground up. Whereas if you use psyllium husk or you use some other kind of thing, and the eggs will give it structure, that will give you a better crumb texture. Also, vegans will use psyllium husk and make an egg replacer, and they will mix up like a little gel of psyllium husk and water, and they will use that instead of an egg. Now, a lot of people say, can I use an egg replacer in my recipes? And if you want to go ahead and try that, that's absolutely great. I haven't gone, because it actually takes a long time to develop all the recipes. I haven't done them all with an egg replacer. But sometimes if you are egg-free or you've got egg intolerance, you probably know what recipes you can and you can't adjust to. But that's why I love psyllium husk. So they're my 3 flours. There is almond flour, coconut flour, and psyllium husk. And they really are the best flours to use. There's all these wonderful flours that are still arriving. You can now buy sunflower seed flour. You can buy pumpkin seed flour. I haven't used those, and I can't get hold of those. If I wanted to, I'd probably ground them up myself and use them. And I did once when I made my carrot cake. I ran out of, I think it uses almond meal. And so all I had in the cup didn't have almonds, didn't have anything. I just had pumpkin seeds. So I thought, right, I'll give this a go. And it was only a quarter of a cup I needed. So I ground the quarter of a cup in my food processor, and it worked brilliantly. So they do work brilliantly. So let me see if there's any more questions coming in. What's your advice on coconut flour with coconut oil or olive avocado oil? I think your question is, okay, so I'm guessing you're thinking for cakes. Is this for, are you saying for the coconut oil or olive oil to use instead of butter? I'm not quite sure what the question is asking. But coconut flour I love. I absolutely love it. And then coconut oil I use. Some people ask me, and I may be inferring the wrong question, but some people ask me if you can use coconut oil instead of butter in recipes if you're dairy free. And you can use coconut oil, but you then would have to add more, maybe a little bit more salt or a little bit more flavouring, because butter gives you that beautiful creamy texture and coconut oil is flavourless. So it just gives you the oil, the ability of the oil, and it gives you the moisture in the cake. So I don't know if oh yes, for a cake. So yes, for a cake, I've got coconut flour cakes on the website. I've got there are, I'm pretty sure my lemon fingers, I think, are coconut flour. I've got coconut flour chocolate chip cookies. I've got coconut flour bread. I've got coconut flour and almond flour pie crusts. I've got there's lots. Like I've got an entire coconut flour category, and I can link that when I come off. And it's got all the recipes that are either developed using coconut flour or I've got substitution. So say, for example, my fathead pizza. Well, it's not mine, it's Tom Norton's. I always give him credit. The fathead pizza was traditionally made with almond flour, but now I've actually got a substitution for coconut flour. And with the fathead nachos, you can make those with coconut flour or with almond flour. So there's all different recipes in there for you. So yes, for the cake, if you want to use the coconut oil, go for it. But you will have to add additional flavour. So if it was a sweet cake, I would potentially add a little bit more salt so that replaces the salt that the butter would have had. And I would maybe add some more vanilla or whatever flavouring that cake would normally require. So hopefully, VJ, that's asked you. Do the baking taste like coconut or the taste disappear? Absolutely brilliant question, Mary Soul. So a lot of people say that using coconut flour gives you an eggy taste or a kind of like that scrambled egg flavour. And there's two have to hold my fingers around the right way, two aspects to that. First of all, if people haven't mixed it properly enough, it will have an eggy taste. That's with anything if you don't mix it well enough. The other thing is if you need to flavour it well, because the coconut flour does have a slight subtle flavour of coconut to it. So if it's in a cake, that's absolutely fine. I would just add extra flavouring. So I would add extra vanilla or I would add a little bit of extra salt because that brings out the flavour of things as opposed to a salty taste. I would add maybe an extra little bit of cocoa and I would make sure it's all mixed well. If it's in a savoury recipe, for example, my coconut flour mini loaves, I add extra pepperoni because I add them inside. I would add extra cheese, maybe a pinch of chilli. Add anything like that, try and mask. Some people are very sensitive to that taste, the subtle flavour of the coconut flour. Other people are absolutely fine. So really flavour it. It's a brilliant, brilliant question. Flavour it well. Excuse me. Just see if there's any more questions coming up. Oh, I need a light, fluffy pancake recipe. Okay, Linda. I've got lots of pancake recipes. I've got a paleo one, which is more for the children. I think that's a recipe from years ago that has a banana, which I wouldn't eat a banana, but maybe my children would have that. I have sheet pan pancakes. So you make the mixture, you pour it into a sheet pan and bake it, and then you slice it. So it turns in, you don't even need to sit there flipping 12 pancakes. You just throw it in the oven. I have almond flour pancakes and I have coconut flour pancakes. But the one that wins me the awards every single time, and somebody's just called me, I think she said she called me her Royal Highness or Royal Waffle Highness, is my keto waffles. And that's where I had an old waffle maker in my cupboard and I was going to throw it away. I thought, I'll never use that again because it needed flour and sugar. And I thought, no, I'll look at the old recipe. So I adapted an old recipe. So it's with coconut flour, it's with lots of butter, it is beautiful, and whipped up egg whites. And it is the fluffiest, yummiest waffle you can make. And another one you can make is chaffles. So I've got free recipes and I've got a free book for you on the website. If you want that, I can drop that link for you as well. So it's brilliant. Mandy, hello from Scotland. Ina from Florida. Erin from Australia. From Ohio. From Brenda. Karen from Florida. Excellent. I love seeing everybody coming in here. So there's my quick 5 and 5, although it did take 14. Have a wonderful, wonderful week, everybody. Like I say, I do apologise. I haven't been live for quite some time. So I thought I'd hop in today because I was live in Dicks to Carbs Pro. Have a wonderful week. And if you've got any baking questions, drop them below, even if you're watching the replay, and I'll keep on answering them. Okay, see you later. Bye.